Welcome to the live stream. Today's episode is with Brendan from Master Talk. And we had a great opportunity to jump on the microphone and share some pearls of wisdom before we did this chat today. But first of all, I just want to acknowledge you for taking the opportunity to share your information and knowledge with my audience today.
Of course, happy to serve.
And when I first came in to your ecosystem, you were inside of a clubhouse room and you were talking about some positions that you were working through as a 19-year-old. And maybe you could share that story with our audience as to how you are to where you are today, like the origin of it.
Yeah, for sure, I'm happy to. So I guess where the story begins, Jim, is when I was in university. I used to do these things called case competitions. So think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So other guys my age were playing football or soccer or rugby or any other dangerous thing I probably shouldn't put my hands in. I applied that same competitive energy, but to presentation. So I know this sounds completely bizarre, but for 3 years, I presented hundreds of times for fun and coached dozens of people on communication. Not really to make a career out of it, but rather to share ideas and to do that because it was really fun for me. And it was that experience that didn't just teach me how to be a more effective leader, because I was leading a lot of big teams when I was very young. But when I joined corporate America after I graduated from university, that's when I discovered what my gift was and how I can make a bigger difference in the world, which ended up being Master Talk. I realized a lot of the communication information out there is really bad. You hear advice like, "Hey Jim, you should get up on stage and say your truth, man." I was like, "What? Like, what is this nonsense?" So I started making videos in my mother's basement. Thought it was the stupidest idea, and 2 years later, never looked back ever since.
That's super cool, man. And I titled this talk today for us as "How would the world change if you were an exceptional communicator?" And I took that off of your profile for Clubhouse. And how did it change your world when you became an exceptional communicator?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say at the beginning, Jim, it was mostly about winning competitions. I'm not any different than any ego-filled 19-year-old, right? It's competition, it's winning, it's getting first place. That was how my world changed. The better I got at communication, the more opportunities I got to lead bigger teams. But then over time, my reason for being changed. It became a lot more complex than just simply winning competitions. I started to realize that communication, hence why I like asking the question, has very little to do with presentations, but rather every interaction you have with every human being you meet. It's the way that I used to talk to my mom. Me and my mom used to argue all the time because we have a very different set of values. Maybe not values, but cultural values rather, because she's born and raised in Sri Lanka and I was born in Canada. So we have differences in how we should operate as a family and how we should be. But when I became a much better communicator, it was a lot easier for me to smooth out those edges. And now we haven't argued in over 5 years or something. I don't even remember the last time we had a fight. Same thing for later in life when I found my life's purpose, which was to democratize the world's information on communication. So anyone has these tools. That reason for me was, what if I could be the bridge between everyone's ideas? If I created a platform where everyone, including especially those who can't afford me or any speech coach, could share all of their tiny ideas, big ideas, the progress of the human race would run a lot faster. We'd start sprinting towards a better future for all of us rather than just walking or jogging, which is what we're doing now. So that's what really got me excited, and that's my answer to the question.
I think that's really cool. And you must really love what you talk about. And let's talk about people like crafting their master talk about what they love, because I know that it's hard for people to be enthusiastic about something that they're kind of, 60% into or 50% into. But when you love something, it's 100%. And maybe you could talk to people about crafting their talk around something that they really love.
Absolutely. So there's two components to that. The first one, Jim, is saying, what's the topic? I don't really know what it is. What should I talk about? And an easy way to figure this out is to ask yourself this question: What do people ask me about the most and why? So if you don't know what your gifts are, just look at the last 10 questions you got in your life. Like, what did my mom ask me? What did that person ask me? And you'll realize there's a common theme. So for me, when I started Master, people would generally ask me two things. One, they would ask me life advice, like how to find purpose, how to be directional with some life. But what most of the questions that were being asked was about communication. Hey, Brennan, how do I give this topic? How do I speak on this thing? So it's time I realized, oh, I'm actually not bad at this thing. Maybe I should pursue this as a career. Everyone's always being asked questions. And we need to understand the significance of that. The reason it's so significant is because they're choosing you over the 100 other people in their network for the question. So, in the same way, let's say I asked you about podcasting, or more specifically in the context of your industry, chiropractic. I believe that's the right word, right?
Chiropractic.
Chiropractic. See, I'm the speech coach. I don't even know how to speak English. So there you go. That's motivation for everybody, right? So even in that context, well, I don't really go to anyone else for that. I would just go to you, even with all the people I've met in my life. And so that's what gives us clues to figure out what the topic is. So that's part one. Part two, and as you can see, I like to keep things really simple, is now that we have the topic, how do we break it down? If you only follow this piece of advice, you will automatically increase your communication skills overnight if you just follow what I'm about to say. And the method is called puzzle. Public speaking is like a jigsaw puzzle, Jim. You know those pieces you kind of put together as a kid?
Mhm.
Right. So if I asked you, let's say you're doing this jigsaw puzzle yourself with your family or something, which pieces would you start with first and why?
I think most people look for the corners,
And what would the rationale
and,
be?
and then they build the borders, and then they learn how to connect the borders with the corners, and then they start building on the inside.
Exactly. Perfect. So now the question we need to ask ourselves is why don't we do that in public speaking? We have a presentation at work, in the boardroom, in the conference room, in the classroom. So what do? We start the middle first. We shove a bunch of content. Shove, 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 shove. We get to the presentation. We ramble through the entire thing. We get to the last slide and it sounds something like this. Thanks. That's probably like 95% of the stuff I hear. But there's an easy way to fix this. Treat your presentations like a jigsaw puzzle. Start with the edges first. Practice your introduction 50 times, not 3 times, not 5 times. Do it 50 times. Same thing with the conclusion. What's a great movie with the terrible ending? Last time I checked, terrible movie. Same thing. 50 times. So I'm sure many of you are listening to this and are saying, 50 times seems like a lot. But if you think about it, your introduction's a minute, your conclusion's a minute. This is not a 2-day exercise. This is a 2-hour exercise. And then you look at your presentation, you go, wow, I'm really good at this presentation thing. My introduction's pretty good, conclusion's pretty good. There you go, you're 2/3 done. Now dive for the middle. But remember, much like a jigsaw puzzle, if you're doing a 2,000 piece puzzle, why would you do that alone? Right? Get some friends, get family, get community, work together, and solve the public speaking puzzle.
That's really good example of how we can all craft a master talk. And you started doing this, you said, from your mother's basement,
Which I'm coming to you live from.
which is still great. And I think that the foundation that you've built is now going to amplify as you build your career out and you build your resources and your credibility as you develop it. I know that one of the things you were just talking about in the clubhouse room that we were in was intentional community. And you talked about how can you bring people in to help you build out your story and to work with you on this master talk. And so you're not doing it alone. So how did you do that to develop your master talk?
Right. So there's a couple of different tactics, but the principle stays the same. And the principle is probably what people remember is just add a lot of value to the people around you and filter the right people for your community in that process. So let's say in my case, just to make it really concrete for people, I add value to everybody, whether it's a Jim, whether it's a Tom or a Billy or a Sarah. I just add value, like whatever you need. Okay, you have a question, I'll answer on Instagram. I answer all my DMs. But out of the 100 people, there's 3 people who do something for me. Jim comes up to me and he said, "Hey, Brendan, I really want to acknowledge for your work. Would love to have you on the podcast. We run a really good ship here. Why don't you come join us?" Then person number 2 goes, "I actually want access to you. Can I get you for coaching or something?" Number 3 goes, "I looked at your YouTube channel and got some feedback for you, some video ideas you didn't consider." So then what you do is you double down on those 3 people and you forget the other 97. So this is what I call intentional giving. If you give to everyone with the same level of energy, you will get drained out. So instead, what I like to do is I sprinkle on everybody, which is already more than most people do. But the people who really say, "Hey, I really like what you're doing," you want to double down, you want to 10x on those 3 people. And that's what I did on Clubhouse. And just for context, for those who know what Clubhouse is, it's a new social media app where you run audio rooms, right? So you're talking with people through audio. That's how I met Jim. That's kind of how you do things. And for me, I got lucky because I did that with thousands of people, sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. So I had my team together before Clubhouse even started. So Chris Delaney and Bill Samoa, who's an ex-Tesla executive, they're just people who actually I think you're a bit more humble than they are, but they're pretty close. You guys are all 3. I'm the ego guy, but all 3 of you are pretty humble, and I got to learn from that. But because I had sprinkled, those 2 people added a lot of value with me, so I partnered with them immediately. They have the same set of values, and then we went and we started hosting rooms together. So my advice is sprinkle on everyone and give the cake to the person who gives the most.
I love that. Um,
I just invented that, literally. I have to take a note on that and put that in another episode.
and what I did is I created a net and I started to pull people off these platforms and give people the opportunity to be seen for the genius that they've created and for the messages that they share. So your opportunity, I look at it like that Eminem song. You got one shot song, like I don't remember. They made a movie out of it, 8 Mile.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people need to go back to that type of fundamental, no matter how, advanced they are in their career, but you only get one shot to make a chance in people's lives. And when the first time I heard you speak, I was like, man, this kid is looking for that one shot. He's looking for that one chance to make an impact on everybody he touches lives with. And I didn't know you from anywhere, but I said, this kid has some talent. And I heard you just responding and adding takeaways to everybody that you had a chance to interact with. And I knew that you would do the same for our audience as well. And, us being in the chiropractic space, I didn't even care if you knew how to say the word chiropractic or chiropractor. All I cared about was that you had a magnetic energy that other people could feed from and learn how to represent their story and their brand the right way. And I think as we were talking off camera, we come from an era of our recent past now, which is keyboard cowboys and these people that run the messages with their thumbs and their fingertips. Where now we're edging into an era of high level communication that manages an articulate story, which manages an origin story, which manages the pre-frame and the close. And we have to really take these things into consideration if we want to be a high level communicator, because not a lot of people over the past 5 years have been using the phone as a phone. They've been using it as a digital device that sits in their pocket. That's basically the double down on a computer that acts as a two-way texter, but not a voice communicator. And people have kind of lost the art of communication verbally. So I'm really excited for this Clubhouse platform and how we can actually start advancing people's communication techniques again and to advance our culture into a forward direction rather than some type of a non-social social media. Um, Coming into this conversation with you, one of the topics I wanted to talk about was the platforms to land speaking gigs and a strategy to do so with you, because I think that that's probably unpacking a little bit about what you do and how do people land speaking gigs and where should they be looking for these?
Right. So the advice I always like to give on this, and I keep it really simple. There's people out there who are much better than me at this, like Grant Baldwin and whatnot. But the framework stays the same. If you're not willing to give the same talk 100 times for free, don't bother getting paid because you won't get paid regardless. We can talk about topics and all that stuff, but I'd say that's the main principle. Anyone who succeeds in the speaking industry, I fundamentally believe this, would speak for free. They would do it for free. They just get paid for it now because they're so good and the demand is so high for them as speakers that they have to charge. That and I'm talking about the people who charge like 6 figures plus. That's their mindset, in my opinion. So for me, anyone who's listening who wants to go pro, you need to understand that all the best speakers in the world who get paid to give their talks always give the same talk. That's why they're professionals at that speech. So that's one component is do the same thing. The other component of it, especially if you want to make a living doing this, is understand that the topic needs to solve a problem for the audience. So there's a reason you, even if I don't know you that well, I can understand why you've succeeded very well as a professional speaker because you have expertise that nobody else has. Right? You can talk about podcasting from the lens of, and I'm going to butcher this, chiropractic, chiro whatever. But the point is, you're the expert. Like so when there's a yeah, sure if there's a dog conference, probably no one's gonna call you. But if there's an industry conference, every single industry conference on chiropractic probably knows who you are because you have the number one show or top show. So same thing. You need to find a topic that solves a problem for an audience. So for me, I got lucky. It just so happened that my gift was highly monetizable, public speaking, right? Teaching people how to speak. So for you, you need to start looking in those lens. And the easy ways to figure this out is just go look at the speakers that are already getting paid, see what topics they're already presenting, and just see if there's any of those topics you can talk on, and there you go.
So it's really a blueprint, but you add your personality to it and you learn from those that came before you. And here's a little tip that I learned through networking in my early years is through it's a BNI principle. We've actually interviewed the founder of BNI, which is Business Network International, and his name is Ivan Meisner. The guy's a genius. People always want to talk about like largest like network groups in the world and how to get more talent. Well, Business Network International is the largest management group when it comes to an industry being represented in every ecosystem of every city. So if you really want to go find raw talent, is harvest people from BNI, but they have a philosophy, and that's giver's gain. And that's why you're here today, because you gained through giving great information on a platform that's brand new. And you can't outgive the giver. So going full circle with this, I know you have a give to our audience today. And how can people work with you if they're curious about learning how to become a better professional speaker or learn how to build their signature talk or learn how to make influence from the front of the room or from the stage?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it always starts with the YouTube channel, right? So for those of you who want to learn more about communication, I share 99% of my information for free. So all you got to do is go to Master Talk in one word on YouTube. You just type that in, and you'll find all that information for you to consume.
So, last topic, I know we touched on Clubhouse, how we found each other. And if you guys want to learn more information on Brendan, once again, go to Master Talk YouTube channel and watch his 99% free stuff. 1% he charges for. But Clubhouse, like, why is this thing so valuable and how can people leverage this? Because no one knows what it is yet. We're early adopters. We're like on the bell curve, like right here, right now. Like, we haven't even begun to like curve. We just like we're there. Like there's not much like timeline of this platform. How can people leverage it?
Yep, I'm happy to be transparent, and I'll try and keep it short because I'll be honest, I could spend 3 hours just talking about why Clubhouse matters, but I'll keep it brief. All that people need to understand is that Clubhouse is the first social media platform ever, where real expertise wins. It's very interesting. It's like the anti social media. So, I'll give you an example. A lot of big names, and I won't name any, that were on social media that were perceived as credible. Now they're being asked questions on the spot. Hey, did you consider this? Did you consider that? And they don't know how to answer them. So the people who are smart realize really quick, hey, wait a second. These people aren't experts. They don't know anything about business coaching. They don't know anything about this. And it's very fast. You can tell right away. But the opposite is also true. If you have real expertise and you're an untold name, like you're the best kept secret, nobody knows who you are, this is your playground. This is your playground. I remember 3 weeks ago when me, Chris, Billy, we got together. Nobody knows who we are, right? Like, I mean, I do well on YouTube, but I'm not some super, like, I don't have 6 million, thousand, gajillion followers or anything, right? So we got together and we're like, how do we make Clubhouse work? And we found out really quick because we all have real expertise. Like me, you can ask me anything about communication. I'll give you really specific feedback on the spot for free. So our following started growing really quickly, and we started building a cult following. So what I advise people to do, if you're someone who doesn't have expertise, I don't recommend Clubhouse unless you're a listener. But if you're someone out there who's been trying to build a brand for a long time and you have that expertise, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Especially for me, since I'm very young, Jim, right? We both know I'm 24. So obviously I coach a lot of C-suite executives today and I have coaching clients and all that stuff. But I wasn't a big name yet because most communication consultants who are very well known in the industry are in their 40s and 50s because it takes a long time to cultivate that expertise. So whenever somebody sees me, their first impression is always, there's no way this guy's an expert on communication. It's just not possible. How could he be 24 but no more than the 40-year-old guy who's been in the business for 20 years? It makes no sense. But because of all the 5 years of cases I did, I ramped up all that knowledge quicker. But on Clubhouse, nobody cares about your age. They only care about your drop. If they go, well, if this guy's like, he makes sense, then you win. So yeah, super exciting. Get on the platform, enjoy it, and enjoy it while it's still here. That's my advice.
Yeah, and I think that listening to what you're saying there matters. Number one, I tell people this, and I haven't started my club yet, or I haven't started hosting many rooms yet. I've been the guy that's the purveyor of information that once I get a chance to share some knowledge to people, I help them. And I'll share something about either chiropractic, or I'll share something about podcasting, or I'll share something about how podcasting can turn you into a credible source and a celebrity status within your micro niche. And I think that those are things that people are going to, once again, learn from and leverage from and collaborate from. And I see the ecosystem of Clubhouse becoming something really special. I appreciate what you and your team have done. I tell people to build their gang of 10, which are 10 people that could become moderators inside of your ecosystem and all have some type of knowledge to be able to answer people's questions, and that you can actually do kind of like the Hollywood squares, where if you don't know the answer, you can pass it to somebody else that's the best person to give the advice on that topic. So no one gets caught with, not looking their best with the answer that they're providing to people. And I think that that's the best type of teacher, the one that proves to the audience that they don't know the answer. And to say, hey, I think that Brendan would be a better resource to ask this question to. Brendan, can you take this one? And I think that that's the most responsible way to not look like a coach that doesn't know how to coach, or an influencer that doesn't know how to brand. And I think that that's where we're going on these conversations, is we can lean on each other. And like you said, you want to practice, practice, practice. And I'll tell you, I've had connections that I've come in as so humble, such a novice. And I said, hey guys, I know you guys are doing really well with your businesses. I want to tell you what I'm doing. How can I improve that? And I've built some great relationships. I have opportunities now. I've actually pulled a half dozen people off of the platform, and now we're building relationships with them and building that relationship capital to take interest in them. Because here's the thing, Brendan, people don't care how interesting you are until they know how interested you are. And when you realize that's the infinity loop that can build a future, and I tell people I want to write the next chapter with them. So I'm really thrilled to be able to have you on the platform today and to share your expertise with my audience today. And I look at the infinity symbol with you. I'm ready to write the next chapter with you.
Thanks, man. I'll take that as a compliment.
And I guess at the edge of this time with you today, because I really value your time, and I said, let's jam for about 30 minutes. And the first 20 minutes we spent talking.
Hey, in all fairness, I was asking you a question, so it doesn't count.
Is there anything I didn't ask you during this time with you today that you would like to share with our audience and impart them with?
Yep, absolutely. I'm happy to leave with a book recommendation, some life advice. So, book recommendation is a book called Thirst by Scott Harrison. It's one that's not recommended a lot by speech coaches. And I think it's the most important read for anyone who wants to master public speaking, storytelling, or messaging. Scott's the CEO of Charity Water. I think he's a savant in marketing, storytelling. So check out the book. It's awesome. Life advice. Life advice, especially for those of you who made it 26 minutes into this conversation, which I very much appreciate, is the following. Be insane or be the same. If you want to be like everyone else, that's totally fine. But if you made it this far in the interview, you probably want to make a difference. You probably want to make a change. And you need to realize that the only way to do that is to be crazy. Don't you find it odd that a 22-year-old kid started a YouTube channel in his mother's basement, not on pranks, not on vlogs, not on jokes, but on public speaking and executive communication tips? Then he went on to coach C-suite executives the year after, but he still lives in his mother's basement. He's literally sitting on a mattress as he's talking to Jim. He doesn't own a car. He dances alone in that basement an hour a day. He karaoke's in 8 different languages. And he loves Justin Bieber. How does this make any sense? And that, my friends, is the point. When every decision in your life makes sense to the only person that matters, which is you, you'll probably be very successful in life. So be insane or be the same.
And I'll leave people with this. A Grant Cardone quote is be obsessed or be average. And I believe that if we leverage each other on this Clubhouse platform, like we have with this opportunity to come together, Brendan, we can help more people. So as we build our ecosystems together and cross pollinate our messaging, if I can ever add value to you and your groups, I would love to do so. And as I grow as an influencer on the Clubhouse platform, I'd love to have you sprinkle in your influence and messaging to the people that know, like, and trust me for the credibility that I built within my intentional community, which is going to be chiropractic. And we're going to talk to people about vitalism and about healthy habits and lifestyle choices and how we can actually crack the genetic code with epigenetics, and that the environments that you live in become the environments that you are, and how that if people change the way that they think, they can change the way that they behave and the attitudes that they bring. And if they practice some strategies, they can get traction to have a better quality of life. So with that being said, I just want to thank you so much for being my guest today on a Chiro Hustle live stream and sharing your zest for life and why you do what you do. And I'm going to close out today by telling people you guys are just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you.